lost to Louisville 89-61. It's the first time in 16 tries that the Louisville Cardinals have beat a ranked opponent. They won by 28 points, and it could have been a lot worse, Matt. It could have been a lot worse because Indiana banged like 3 threes in the last minute. I think 2 in the last 6 seconds to cut what would have been like nearly a 40-point loss to only 28. We'll see how much it ends up helping their metrics in the long run. We'll talk about Louisville in a second. My biggest question to you, Matt, is the thing that stood out to me more than anything else in this game is that you got about midway through the second half, and it felt like Indiana just gave up. They just rolled over and died. There was a stretch there where they didn't even look like they were defending in the second half. What happened with Indiana, and how did this loss come to fruition?
Well, again, everyone wants to talk about Mike Woodson, and is he the right guy for the job? And he's the former player that they brought in to fix things. And I think when you look at Indiana basketball, Tom Crean's first year, they win one game. And he takes them to a couple different championships. He takes them to multiple, NCAA tournaments. And maybe his tenure, he stayed too long. Like I think there's something to be said about that. I think there's, you can stay too long in a certain place. And then Archie Miller comes in. And Archie Miller didn't forget how to coach when he was at Indiana. I mean, you look at what Archie Miller did at Dayton, was absolutely through the roof. Had to deal with the pandemic when he was at Indiana. And, okay, now let's bring in an NBA coach that's a former player that was there with Bobby Knight. I think when you look at Indiana, you have to think about what are the expectations? Has anyone done it at the level of certain people that have done it like Bobby Knight has? And the answer is no. And we have these expectations that they're supposed to be at that level and get to the Final Four and win national championships. And it's just not the case. So are you going to continue to recycle coaches? We know that they struggled shooting the basketball from the perimeter. That wasn't necessarily the case today. They shot 35% in the game, but it's just kind of one of those things. It's like, what's going to get them over the hump? What's going to get them back to the level of a blue blood, which is what everyone expects them to be at? And I don't have the answer to that.
Amp?
I mean, today it came down to Chucky Hepburn, bro. Chucky Hepburn treated these dudes like adopted children. Like, it was so bad. It was so bad. Chucky Hepburn had Indiana in absolute shambles. Their backcourt couldn't do a damn thing. Nobody. Miles Rice, Kenan Carlisle, Trey Galloway combined for 3 points, went 1 for 15. I think it was like 9 turnovers and 2 assists or something, or 3 assists. It was terrible. It was so bad. Louisville jumped them. They had such good energy from jump. It was an 8-point deficit at half, and I held the halftime space for like Indiana fans, and I'm like, I don't know how this is just 8. It feels like 15 or 16. It feels like these two teams, their energy is so far apart that it was very important for Indiana to just hold serve for the first several minutes of the second half. But just the energy that, Kelsey had his guys playing at, the attention to detail, that team also for Louisville fans, that game against Tennessee where you kind of ran up against a buzzsaw, I think that was one of the better things that could have happened to you early on. You guys played a very seasoned Tennessee squad, and I think Kelsey learned a lot about his own players. The Louisville I saw today, 180 from what I saw against Tennessee. And Chucky Hepburn was great today. Got everybody involved. Got their shooters to get like Balo was playing like bad drop, and the 5 was popping, hitting threes. It was just a great basketball game on both ends for Louisville. But if you're Indiana and you go out and you finally have a backcourt like that, like you have a 5th or 6th year guy in Trey Galloway coming off the bench to help out with the backcourt, and you can't run offense, that is an issue. That is a big problem that goes beyond Woodson, and that as a player, as a guard, you have to have some sort of pride when you put on the Indiana jersey. If you're the leader of this team, if you're the general, and you can't tell your troops what to do because you're being hounded way too hard, that's an issue. You have to look yourself in the mirror, bro. That was just an embarrassing game from like opening tip to the very end. Just all the way embarrassing. And shout out to Anthony Leal and the bench mob for bringing that game to just to score 60 because it looks a little bit better, right? It looks like it's in the 20s and not by 30s or 40s. But yeah,
yeah, you're right.
Absolute shame.
It does, man.
Absolute shame.
It could have easily been 37. You know, Debbie Antonelli's kid got in there with like 2.5 minutes left, man. They're in the era where you don't clear the bench. Louisville cleared the bench with like right at the under 4. Like it was pretty wild. Like I just so there's a couple things that I take away from that. One, you're 100% right. Like Chucky Hepburn ate up Miles Rice, and I don't think I appreciated enough how good that dude is defensively. Like he is a dog of dogs.
He was real good last
He will
year.
get after you. He will ruin your entire experience in the Bahamas with what he could do defensively. But I thought that it was really two things to me, and I'm curious, McCall. I'm curious your take on this. One was when you're going to play two bigs and M'Baku at the 3. The way that Indiana wants to, and you go up against a team that kind of has similar positional size. You know, Noah Waterman's 6'11", Kason Pryor is 6'10". You got 2 6'6" wings that start, right? And those guys just want to play 5 out, and they're running and they're cutting and they're moving, and they run that Kelsey offense. Like that's part of the issue of playing those two bigs is having to guard teams that play modern, real, actual basketball, what you're supposed to do in 2024. And then to me, that kind of comes to fruition. Indiana ended up getting 23s up in this game, but at halftime they took 6 threes. I think it was 31 field goals, 6 3-point attempts. And to me, the issue was you kind of saw a team that is playing to space the floor where they use the set of the threat of the 3 to create the rim pressure with the back cuts and the way that they run offense versus a team that wants to get the ball in the post and run their offense that way. And it doesn't work. It's easier to guard smaller when you have to play against big guys than it is to use your big guys to try to chase Noah Waterman, who's out here banging threes. He took 8 threes. He was being guarded by Umar Ballo. Like, McCall, what do you like? That right there is the problem with playing this style of basketball to me.
Yeah, but Rob, I think the bigger problem is one team came out completely inspired. Louisville was inspired. Like they came out there and they're like, you know what? This game is important to us, and we're fired up, and we're excited to play, and we're excited to be here. And Indiana wasn't that. Like at the end of the day, you can play the game of basketball a million different ways. You can play two bigs, you can run motion, you can play zone, you can press, you can do all this. But if your team doesn't play inspired or like something's on the line, Louisville's team played the way that their coach coaches. Like Pat Kelsey, high energy, everything. Like that's how their team plays. And Indiana wasn't that way. I think the floor spacing when you try to play two bigs is always going to be an issue. And then what are you doing defensively? Are you going to switch? Are you not going to switch? But the way Louisville wants to play with that pace and shoot a bunch of threes and the ball being flown up the floor. But to me, the style of play is not what cost Indiana this game. It was like the game was more important to Louisville. And everyone in Louisville's program, like it was that. That's at the end of the day. That's what cost Indiana. The game meant more to Louisville. So we can talk about style of play. Throw that out of the window.
Who does that fall on, Ant? Who does that fall on?
That does fall on Woody quite a bit. It does for sure. You got to be juiced to play all these games. You can't go into games like this prime time games and just treat them like your regular bye. You know, you have to be able to come out and put your foot on the gas 100%. And then, like, I'm sitting here looking at the Malik Renew stat line, 21 points, 7 for 12, 7 rebounds, and 4 assists. That looks real sexy. But if you watch the game, he probably allowed like 35, 40 points. So, like, it looked good, but it's just one of those things where you have to be able to adjust. And one thing about this Indiana roster, I think it has the pieces to play in multiple ways. But if you're not going to come in with that energy that you're going to come out and win this game, you're going to come out and, you know, you are. I feel like Louisville put their imprint on Indiana. Like whatever Louisville wanted to do, they did it. And I don't think Indiana really executed anything in their game plan for Louisville to have to adjust to. It was just Indiana just getting ran over after every under 4 throughout the entire game. It was really, really ugly.
Yep. All right. So real quick before we move on.